Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thereafter, the personality of Godhead glanced over the sky, partly mixed with eternal time and external energy, and thus developed the touch sensation from which the air in the sky was produced. Purport. All material creations take place from subtle to gross. The entire universe has developed in that manner. From the sky developed the touch sensation, which is a mixture of eternal time, the external energy, and the glance of the personality of Godhead. The touch sensation developed into the air in the sky. Similarly, all other gross matter also developed from subtle to gross. Sound developed into sky, touch developed into air, form developed into fire, taste developed into water, and smell developed into earth. So thank you all for coming. First of all, I would like to seek the blessings of all the senior devotees assembled here, and then all the good wishes of everybody else. The senior devotees assembled online, everybody, so I can say something useful for my own purification. As I mentioned in a previous class, that in a book that I was reading, Sarartha Darshine Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that when somebody speaks the Bhagavatam, the purification happens first, the most purification is for the speaker, then for the inquirer, and then for the listener. So I'm doing this for selfish reasons, just so you know. So I speak for my own purification, so thank you. This is a conversation happening between Maitreya and Vidura. So Maitreya is a sage, he's somewhere in the forest, and Vidura is on a pilgrimage and has found him, and he's asking him questions. He's asking him about how the world functions. But it's very interesting because the very first question in the beginning of the chapter that Vidura asks is, he says something along the lines of how nobody in this world is satisfied, and what to speak of satisfaction, even by performing the material activities in this world, even the material distress is not mitigated. Hence, can you tell me something about the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead which mitigate everyone's distress? And Maitreya goes, right, okay, so first of all there was sound, and then from sound came ether, and then we start thinking, okay, what's going on? He's asking about the pastimes of the Personality of Godhead, and it goes into a whole description of everything goes from subtle to gross, and then from false ego comes the mind in the mode of goodness, and then comes the intelligence in the mode of passion. And you think, whoa, what's going on? Can we hear about some pastimes? Because that's what Vidura asked for. But it is important to understand that these are also pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When we think of pastimes, we immediately get to Krishna and the gopis. Okay, that is a pastime. Or we think Krishna and the cowherd boys, Krishna and, Krishna as a baby, all these Vrindavan pastimes. But these are also important pastimes, because if it weren't for these pastimes, well, you wouldn't exist. Well, you would exist, you've always existed, but the material world wouldn't exist, the creation wouldn't exist. And so it is important to understand the nitty-gritty and the jnana side of things. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also explains that what can save one is knowledge. He says, Sarvam jnanam plavenaiva vrijinam santarishyasi. The explanation and the relishing of pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan comes later, but before that, we need the knowledge and understanding of this material world. Even to that extent that it is said that in the Bhagavad Gita, the middle 6 chapters are the most important. But when you get to the 13th chapter, Krishna starts off by saying, now I will teach you knowledge that is even more important. And then you think, well, what's more important than devotional service? And then he goes on to explain about the 3 modes of nature, how the material world functions, because it is important to start off with that. We need to understand the basics, and that knowledge is what will help you escape from this material world. And unless you do that, devotional service is difficult, or at least the full experience of devotional service is difficult. We need to start with the basics. So, I'm sure there's a lot of this going on in previous verses, but in this specific verse, it's spoken about the different, how everything goes from subtle to gross. Okay? Something manifests subtly first, and then the gross manifestation or the physical manifestation of that thing happens. And in this verse particularly, it's spoken about how sound comes first. Okay, sound. And then the quality representing it, which is ether, comes from that. Okay? So if you think about it, sound is the quality that is presented in ether. So it is said, sometimes we think, what is ether, what is air? But sound actually is transported through ether. It's a quality of ether. Touch comes into air. Touch transforms into air. The sensation of touch transforms into air. So if you think about the 5 elements, okay, it's a progression. Anything funny? Or something I said? Or difficult to comprehend. Yeah. It is difficult, isn't it?
When we hear it without context, it sounds very funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, we'll hopefully get some context over time in this class. But so, touch, if you think about it, okay, let me give you some context. What is it about air that you can have a sensation? You can feel air, right? Can you taste air? Anybody tasted air before? What does it taste like? Anybody think air has a form? Anybody think air has smell? Air technically doesn't have smell, but it carries smell. Okay? So air doesn't have form, air doesn't have taste, air doesn't have smell. Okay? But air has touch because air evolves from the sensation of touch. And it carries sound. Air has a sound because sound manifests first, okay, into ether. And then from the sense of touch, air manifests. The next thing that manifests is the sense of form, and from that comes fire. So if you think about it, fire has sound, okay, which manifested before. Fire has touch, because you can touch it, which also manifested before from air, okay. Fire has form, because you can see fire, because it's already manifested. But fire doesn't have taste, or at least you'll burn your tongue if you try to taste it, okay, because it's not yet manifest, okay. And fire doesn't have smell, because it doesn't, okay. You can't smell fire, because it's not manifested yet. So in the same way, the next thing that comes is the sense of taste. And then from the sense of taste manifests water. So if you think about it, water has taste, okay? Water has form. Water has touch. Water has sound. All the things that manifested before. Water doesn't have smell, because it's not yet manifested. You can't smell water. And then later on comes smell. Smell is manifested, and then from smell manifests earth. So earth has smell, earth has taste, you can taste it because taste comes from earth. Earth has form, earth has touch, okay, you can feel it, and earth also has sound, okay. So it manifests step by step, and that's why all these different elements carry different qualities, and together, as these elements develop, and in different forms, all the different forms of the earth develop. Is that more helpful? A little bit. Thank you. So everything, it is said, everything is always created twice. Because it is explained here that everything comes from subtle to gross. So everything is always created twice, or at least twice. Let me give you an example. Like this building, okay? Before this building manifested as it is today, this building manifested in somebody's head, okay, in their mind. There was a mental manifestation, which is a subtle manifestation which happened first, okay? And then slowly it happens, the manifestation happens in stages. So first it manifested in somebody's mind, then they sat down, they got the papers out, they started drafting, okay, with a pencil and a paper, they draw the elevation, the plan, the side view, and they create a 3D model on paper. So first it manifested in mind, subtle, then a bit more gross on paper, okay, then came the bricks, then came the mortar, then came wood, this building's made of wood, Don't light fires in here. Okay, as we know, it can catch fire. Anyway, I was going to give some examples, but we'll skip that. This building is made of wood. So then they got the wood together. Then it was created as a building, and then the function came in. People started living in here. So if you think about it, anything is in the world is always manifested more than once, and it always goes from subtle to gross. It's manifested in somebody's head. Initially, the first manifestation is also subtle. In the same way, this whole world, the manifestation of the material world, starts with something very, very subtle, which is the desire of the living entity. Okay? A very, very subtle element, the desire. And because of that desire, the world is created. And as we've seen in previous verses, even in the physical manifestation, it happens from gross to subtle, subtle to gross. Okay, slowly this world is manifested. In the same way, it is also explained that our body is also manifested first in your mind. And again, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains how we are at every moment creating our future body. And our future body, your future body, is already manifesting in your head right now. You're already creating the body that you will go into at the end of this life. Okay? It's already being created to the extent that he explains, he gives the analogy of a caterpillar. Okay? Have you ever seen a caterpillar go from one leaf to the other? Okay, what it does is it's on one leaf, then the front of it goes into another leaf, and there's a point when it's on both leaves, and then it moves on to the first leaf completely. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that before you die, your next body is already manifest, because you already created it in your head by your activities and your desire, and it's already there, ready. And then the soul transforms, as in not transforms, transmigrates and enters that body, but it's already there. By the end of this life, you already decided what it's going to be like. So everything starts from subtle to gross. So subtly, you're already creating your next body right now. So think about it, okay? Everything to some extent depends on what you think at the moment of death. Krishna says whatever one thinks at the time of death, that's where he goes. But what you will think at the time of death, you're already manifesting in your lifestyle now. Whatever you're thinking in this life, that's what you'll think of at the time of death. And what you think at the time of death is where you will go. So it's a whole process. You're manifesting your future body already, and everything transforms from subtle to gross. And to understand the beauty or the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan, we have to first understand these pastimes. Knowledge is very, very important, because without understanding intellectually about the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, if you jump straight to the pastimes, it's very difficult. And you might end up missing out on certain important factors that help you grow in Krishna consciousness. I'll give you an example. During Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj's times, after Lord Chaitanya left this planet, a lot of upper sampradayas evolved. Okay, some of them were, I was just reading about them yesterday. They were called Aulas and Baulas. Okay, so Baulas they're called like an Ashastrik upper sampradaya, which means they totally reject scripture. Okay, because they say that the soul and God have a connection within. Okay, God is within the heart, and one can establish this connection on their own, and there's no need of any scripture anywhere. And scriptures actually are a hindrance to your relationship with God. Sounds familiar? You heard that somewhere? Okay. Everywhere, all around, everybody tells, this, anyway, without naming people or naming others. We can name people in the past because they're not around anymore. So everybody, this philosophy is very prominent in the world today. We don't need God. We don't need scripture. We can manifest this relationship with God in our heart. Okay. So they were also like that. And they literally rejected scripture, and they would go straight to the ecstatic emotions without any philosophy. And there was a time when this is a pastime. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj talks about this. And he says there was one big kirtan mandali, okay, a kirtan group, a Harikatha group, like a sangha, about 100 years ago. And this big sangha, but then the leaders of the sangha were at odds with each other, okay? So they used to argue with each other a lot, and it didn't really work. So then they kind of thought, okay, we'll go and have our own sanghas. So it kind of split into two. But they're always like, competing with each other, these two sanghas. So one of them, once they invited like a famous kirtan leader, and he was leading kirtan and doing lila kirtan or whatever. And then in the middle of the kirtan, he went into like an ecstatic trance, okay? And he went into this trance and he was swooning and exhibiting all these symptoms of bhava, and he was on the floor and rolling, and everyone was so enamored by it. And it went on for like almost an hour. And then he got up and then he carried on with stuff, and everybody was excited. They were like, wow, this is amazing. This guy, he's so spiritual. He went into like a trance of bhava. And anyway, his word spread around and he became very popular, and this kirtan group started getting more and more popular. So then the other kirtan group thought, we got to do something about this. So they went to a kirtaniya and then they hired him. They said, can you exhibit a trance for at least an hour and we'll pay you? Because we need to be out there as well. So then this guy was like, okay, well, how much will you pay me? And then they said, well, I'll give you 4 anna. Okay, so 4 anna, so for about 25 paise would be 4 anna. Okay, so 8 anna would be 50 paise. But about 100 years ago, I looked it up, and 4 annas were equivalent of what 20 pounds is today. Okay? So he didn't want 20 pounds, he wanted 20 pounds worth of marijuana. Okay, so he goes, if you pay me that, then I'll exhibit a trance. So then a deal was made. Okay, so you go into bhava for 1 hour, and then we'll give you 4 anna or 20 pounds worth of marijuana. So he's like, all right. So then they start this kirtan, and then he starts singing, and as planned, like halfway through the kirtan, he goes into this trance of bhava, and he's like, he's swooning in ecstasy, and everyone's like, wow, this is amazing. Unfortunately, what happens is it's like a hot day, hot and sweltering, humid day. So about half an hour into it, it kind of becomes too much for him. So he kind of gets out of his trance and kind of carries on with his talk. And at the end, he goes to the leaders and he asks for payment. He goes, that wasn't our deal. He goes, our deal was an hour. You only did it for half an hour. And his reply was, well, how much bhava do you want to see for 20 quid? So it was like, everything was like so cheap, and if you get too much into all these ecstatic things and stuff like that without any philosophy, that's what happens. There was so much deviation. So the point is that we should develop intelligence by understanding the Shastra first, and all the other things come later. Okay? So before you exhibit symptoms of ecstasy, and before you understand and feel the pastimes of Krishna, this understanding of knowledge is important. And I find it very interesting that if you read the 10th canto, as you gradually go into it, not jump into it, as you gradually progress through the different cantos, and you read all these stories of the songs of separation from the gopis, and it's very interesting when you get there, because it seems like they know Krishna is God. It's almost like all the lines are like, oh Krishna, oh Supreme Personality of Godhead, oh husband of the goddess of fortune, please come and, why have you left us? And it seems like, it's not like they don't know, okay? It's like they know, but their ecstasy of love is very overwhelming that it doesn't matter. It's like even though they know, it doesn't matter. They don't really care who he is. But it's not like they don't know. So sometimes there is also this thing that sometimes people think that why do I need to learn all these things? Why do I need to understand about where sound comes from and where touch comes from and how the material world was created? Isn't it just sufficient to go straight to the aspects of devotional service and learn about and relish Krishna's pastimes, because that's what it's all about anyway? But if you see even the devotees who exhibit the highest caliber of ecstasy, they also seem to know, they have the knowledge. But then there comes a time when you surpass that and the ecstasy takes over, okay? But it's not that you jump into the ecstasy without the knowledge. If you read the songs of the acharyas, okay, they exhibit the highest symptoms of ecstasy, okay, and then the mood that they are feeling. But it's not that they don't know the philosophy. So the philosophy and understanding, and sometimes I remember someone asked a question in class a few days ago about how this is very difficult to comprehend and it can be very boring, okay? And it is boring sometimes. It's not, well, it's kind of boring because it's difficult to comprehend. And I find it boring too, but you just got to push through it because it's important to understand these things, and then we get there. Okay. Is that good? So far so good? Okay. Now, in the world today, everybody is suffering because of lack of Krishna consciousness. As you go out there, it seems like people have everything, but there's still a lot of suffering going on. So the solution to all this suffering can only be Krishna consciousness, okay? Because people out there, they are desperate for an experience that is beyond this world. Literally, people are desperate because they are trying so many things. They are trying literally so many things, because they are not satisfied with what the world can provide them. Did you know what is the biggest illegal money-making scheme in the world out there? What makes the most amount of money, okay, in the world out there? Take a guess. What makes the most amount of money illegally? Drug trade. That's what I thought, but it's not.
Bitcoin?
People trafficking, not quite. Some sort of trafficking, but not that.
Bitcoin?
Bitcoins, I don't know if Bitcoin's illegal. Maybe it is, but anyway. David. Slave, it's not that big at the moment. Well, there is it's kind of everywhere. The whole world is slave labor to some degree. Arms trade, no. Let me tell you what it is. Okay, you won't believe it. It's actually lottery scams. Okay? It's actually, lottery scams. So what they do, mainly in two places, it all runs in, I watched a documentary on it. I like watching documentaries. They have these call centers, okay, especially in two places. They have Jamaica and Israel. Okay, call centers. You walk into it, this is lady who goes undercover and kind of films everything. And they have these call centers, and it's very organized, okay? They have all these contacts, and they'll call you and they go, so, did you know you recently won a lottery? We want to tell you this news, like it's amazing. You won a lottery and it's worth like 10 million. Okay, congratulations. So usually the first response from the other side is always, hang on, I didn't think I bought a lottery. Okay, I never bought a lottery. Okay, and then they go, no, but remember you went shopping the other day, and then and then you went to like TJ Maxx. Okay, in America it's TJ Maxx. Okay, you went to TJ Maxx. I'm like, yeah. Well, you bought that and you were automatically entered into a lottery, and then we just want to tell you that we actually won. They're like, whoa, no way, really? So they go, yeah. So you won like 10 million, and it's amazing, and then they celebrate and and they go, you just have to give us like about £2,000, $2,000 just to pay for like tax and things like that, and and then release the money, and then we'll send it over to you. Or they'll say something like, you won a Mercedes, and we're going to send you a key by post, and they actually send them a key. But there's no Mercedes attached to it, it's just a key. And they say, we'll give you a key, but you got to send us this money and you can come and take your car. And people actually fall for it. Even though it's interesting how they know they've never applied for a lottery, they've never bought a ticket, but it's like people really want something, like, because they're just so tired of this world. And she goes into like understanding the philosophy behind all these things, and it comes to, and they ask them like the scammers, like, why do you think people fall for it? What, and she interviews them as well. They kind of have masks on their face and stuff because they don't want to show their face. And they say it basically comes down to three things. So they say, first of all, a lot of people are stupid. Okay? I mean, I'm not saying this, I'm just repeating from the documentary. So a lot of people are stupid, number one. Okay? Because how can, it's like they're saying, like, we ask them for money, they send it to us, we don't send them anything, we call them again, we ask them for money, and they still send us money. It's like, it's not our fault. It's like, so they're like, do you feel sorry about it? No, we don't. It's like, it's their fault. So number one, they say they're stupid. Second, they say, Shri Radha Govinda ki jai. Okay. The second thing they say is that people are lonely. Okay? People are lonely and they're just so tired of their life being alone. Sometimes they have a family and they're still lonely. Sometimes they have so much money, they have so many things around them and they're still lonely. Okay? And people just want to talk and just have a connection somewhere because people are lacking that connection. He goes, third thing is that people are greedy. Even though they got so much, they always want more. Okay? Even though they got so much, they fall for it. And it's like the biggest money-making scam in the world today. Literally makes billions. It makes more than any drugs. It makes more than any, Bitcoin. It makes more than any arms race, anything at all. Okay? It makes a lot of money because people are lonely and people are suffering. People want an experience that is different because this world literally doesn't have the capacity to give you that spiritual experience. And that's why even in the 70s, as we saw, as we hear, that people go for drugs, a lot of drugs and stuff like that. Here's something interesting I found in the same documentary. So there's this new drug that's being used in the last 5 years, 5 to 10 years, and it's called fentanyl. Okay, you know about it, Nish? So fentanyl, it kills about 30,000 people every year just in the US. Okay, 30,000 people. And it is said that it's about 200 times more powerful than heroin. And a heroin overdose may kill you. A fentanyl overdose will kill you. 100%. It's that powerful. People know it. People still take it. And they have the experience and then they die. Because it's just so difficult to not overdose because it's just so powerful. And every year, there's literally thousands and thousands of people dying from a fentanyl, like for the past 5 to 8 years, okay? So the thing is, why are they doing this? Why are people doing this? Because there is nothing in this material world you can get from all the normal things, the money or the sex or the drugs, no, not drugs, the alcohol or whatever it may be. People are just not getting their experience and there is nothing in this material world that can satisfy the spirit soul. They want something different, okay? So they're taking so many risks to whether it's they really want to believe that they won 10 million pounds or whatever. They really want to have that experience and people are taking so many risks to do that. Because that experience is not available in this world. But that experience is available in Krishna consciousness. And that is what the Hare Krishna movement believes. That is what Srila Prabhupada said, that there is no experience in this world that can replace Krishna consciousness because it gives you experience out of this world. Okay? So somehow we need to share this knowledge of Krishna with everybody and it's very, very important. But before we share this knowledge, we have to understand this knowledge and then you can share it. So today also I think marks the beginning of the summer marathon, which is about 2 weeks I think. So devotees are traveling all over the world from different places, not from here. From here they're going Leicester I think, as far as Leicester. And also around the manor. So if you do get an opportunity, take some books and distribute them because this movement is based on books. Prabhupada said books are the basis. This movement is a movement of book distribution and the books have to go out because that's how we disseminate the knowledge of Krishna consciousness out there. And this knowledge has saved you. Okay, you could be doing fentanyl right now, but you're not. So in fact, the 4 regulative principles are actually saving you today. So these things have saved you, and these books can also save people out there. And so it is important to distribute books, but what's also important is that we leave them with an impression that makes them want to read the books. That is also very important because if you look at the statistics, I came across this about 10 years ago, and till date in the UK there were 80 million books distributed. Okay, about 10 years ago this was. I'm not up to date with the statistics. So that's more than the population in the country. Okay, so it seems like on average there's at least 1 book per person, but there isn't. Maybe some people have more books, whatever. But the idea is that we don't have anywhere close to those many devotees. And yes, Prabhupada's books are powerful. Even if they touch them, they get benefit. We know that. But we want them to make progress now. Okay? We don't want them to wait like 3 generations. Of course, it will happen in 3 generations, even if they see a devotee. But we want it to happen now. So it is important to, when you distribute books, you speak to them in a way that you inspire them, and they should go away thinking, wow, I really want to read this book. And that interaction is very important. And if that interaction, during that interaction, they think, well, okay, I'm just gonna, this guy's bothering me, I'll give him a couple of pounds and take a book and go out of here. Or if it's not a pleasant interaction, if it's not an inspiring interaction, your book scores will go up. Maybe in the next 50 years we would have done 300 million books in the UK. I don't know. But are the numbers of devotees going to go up proportionately? So my point is, book distribution is very, very important. It is the basis. But if you can do something more than book distribution, at least have a conversation with them, tell them about the book, show them the book, and try and get their interest. And they should go away from that interaction thinking, wow, I really want to go home and read a book. At least 1 page. Even if they read, once they open the book and read Prabhupada's words, Prabhupada's got them. Okay, Krishna's got them now. But if they just chuck the book somewhere on a bench on the side of the street, or they put it somewhere in their shelf and never pick it up, then it's going to be a while. Okay, so I think it's important to make an endeavor to inspire them so they really want to read the book. Another thing you could do also is personal interaction. I've found always works best. If you find somebody interesting, even if you have a slightly, vaguely interesting conversation, get their email or the phone number and stay in touch with them. It always makes a huge difference. And don't give them your contact, because people will never contact you. Once that interaction with a devotee is over, they're back in Maya. Okay, they're never going to contact you. You have to stay in touch with them. So if you find somebody interesting, get the contact, stay in touch with them, and invite them to a program. Okay, invite them to the manor. We have a program almost every Saturday they can come to. But I also want to tell you that while you go out and distribute books on the marathon, you can invite them to the open day, which we're having on the 20th of July. Okay, we have lots of flyers. Karan Prabhu can give you flyers. You can take these flyers, give them out, invite them to the open day, let them come to the manor, let them take darshan of Radha Govinda, let them come and learn about philosophy. There's going to be workshops on the Gita, so many other things, and let them experience this wonderful place that George Harrison has given us to use in service. Okay, we need to use this place in service to Krishna. That's the point. So please invite them. Open day, 20th of July, and in your book distribution, please distribute loads of books, but at least try to have a meaningful interaction that makes them want to read the books. But in essence, knowledge is important, even all the boring stuff. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Do we have any questions? We have 5 minutes for comments or thoughts. I think Taruna Prabhu. Is there a microphone for Taruna Prabhu? It's okay. Why don't you tell me, Prabhu? I can repeat it.
In regard of, try to hook them somehow further, those to you preach. I found, this is my experience, my and many others, that even if you find interesting person at the moment, you create this inspiration in him and he seems to be interested. But then when you try a second time, he's completely cooled down, And then many times, even if you contact, they ask, who are you? So it means, and also even if this, if they still remain interested, I found that it puts them away, turns them back when you try to do more. So this is, as you said, we have to make them devotees as soon as possible. Why we have to wait so many years? But this turns into a mode of passion. As soon as they sense that, they pick up on, they turn back. So it's very tricky position. So I mean, most of the people come somehow. You give them knowledge, and then in them there's something happen, because nobody was preaching to me that way. That was, I would maybe come. I'm led with knowledge, and then over the years, doesn't matter how it takes. It took me 10 years at least. You know, so for many people works like that. You know, so any tendency is passion. I want to make him devotees. Books are there, knowledge is there. He has to decide. This is a process of self-realization. We give you knowledge, you realize that yourself. So that's, and this is my. If you know how to really preach, if you just can create deep friendship at first contact, just friendship that you can see that you're a nice person, and then there's a chance. Slowly, but it's a slow process. It's a slow process.
So Taruna Prabhu, so very good point. I think our job in preaching is to give people an opportunity, and people will take it up on their own. You can't force people, and you are right. If you are pushy with people, then they will go away because they think, okay, this is something strange going on here. They're trying to force me to become something. So we don't want to do that, and that wasn't my point. My point is, are we giving them enough opportunity and inspiration? And I think, personally, it's possible, because I can tell you from personal experience that if there are some people who are ready, who will just come to Krishna consciousness straight away, as soon as they find it, there are people like, wow, this is amazing, and they come and they do a Be a Monk challenge, or they want to just come and visit, and there are people like that. There are people who are sort of lukewarm, in the sense they're ready, they're kind of ready for Krishna consciousness, but they need a little bit more effort, and then they will be ready. Like, they like Krishna consciousness, but if you sort of speak to them a bit more, if you give them a little bit more information, if you invite them, if you look after them, then they will take it up. There are those kind of people. And then there are people who are very, very far from Krishna consciousness, and who need a book, and maybe they'll take their time, they'll take their 5 years, 10 years, whatever may be the case, to come to Krishna consciousness. There are all types of people. The only thing is, we don't know which one's who. So what you would do, what I normally do, is I give people a book. If I find somebody interesting, I take their contact, I email them. My rule is 3 times. After 3 times, if they don't reply, I stop emailing them, or messaging them, or calling them. But if they do reply, I try to take the conversation forward. I try to keep them interested, invite them to things, and sometimes they do come. And in my experience, I have found that if you make an effort, I have found that there's so many devotees who have come to Krishna consciousness from spending time with them. And if you make an effort, I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but I think I should a little bit. Because just to kind of explain the fact that if I have spent time with people, and there are people who would never have come here, but because of spending time, they have become devotees, and they have become initiated even. And I think it does work. I think you have to, if you stay in touch, some people will, some people won't. That's always the case. Out of every 100, maybe 10 will respond to your emails or your contacts or stuff like that. And it is not an easy job. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj did say that it takes 200 gallons of blood for every devotee to nourish the spiritual corpus of every existing person out there. I don't even know if there's 200 gallons of blood in a human body, but the point is that it takes a lot of effort, but that effort is qualifies you for the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So yes, we have to see the interest in the person and reciprocate accordingly. We don't want to be pushy. But I think if you make a little bit more effort, then it can, for those who are ready, it can help them.
Just want to make one more comment that I've seen many great scholarly devotees, amazing devotees, but they don't know actually how to preach to new people.
Yeah.
They just don't know. And then many times they really fry the people.
Yeah.
So in that sense, one really has to be honest with himself
Yeah.
and see in which way he can preach,
Yeah.
not directly. He is convinced I can, but they go fanatically. And then even when I hear what they speak and how they speak, I don't like what to speak of new people. So you have to really, every preacher, so-called preacher or whatever, must really think where he can contribute most. You know, everybody would like to be frontline preacher to bring people, and this can carry you, but really be honest.
Yeah.
And then there are really, honestly, there are very few really preachers I met who are really successful, know how to deal with people.
Yeah.
I have to admit you are one of them.
Yeah.
Everybody knows results are very amazing, comparably with everything else.
Yeah.
So it's not everyone's job. My father used to say, it's not everyone's job to sing through the village.
Yeah.
The same. So you have to really honestly examine yourself and see where you can do. Even if it's far background preaching, do that.
Yeah.
Better for you than fry people. Because
I think everybody has a different preaching style, and I personally think that every preaching style will attract some type of person. Some preaching styles will fry more people out and then attract less, and some things, and if you go too much to the other side, then you're saying nice things to everybody, but it's not really inspiring to anyone. And so I think preaching requires a balance. Not everybody's an expert, but I think I mean I've fried people out as well. So the point is that at least if you make an endeavor and if you make an attempt, it may not be everyone's thing. Maybe you will fry a few people out, but maybe you will inspire a few people as well, because there is certain people are just attracted to scholarly presentations. They may not be into yoga or wishy-washy stuff, whereas some people may not be into scholarly stuff. They may be into something else. So I think every type of preacher is important, and they'll do things in their own way, and it'll attract somebody. But the point is, at least if we try in whatever feels authentic to us in our own way without trying to be somebody else, if you just be who you are and just try to share Krishna consciousness with everybody, at least somebody will be attracted to that. But anyway, it just comes over time. You just have to keep doing it. I think Nimai Prabhu had a quick question, and then Panchatattva Prabhu. I don't know if you have time. Maybe just no. Okay, just last one. Maybe Panchatattva Prabhu and.
Thanks, bro. Just on the same point, if you just sort of explain what it is you actually message people when you first make that contact.
Oh, in the first contact, I just tell people, hey, it was nice to meet you. How's things? And then based on what they reply, you just keep the conversation going. My usual trick is you always end a conversation with a question, because if you leave it as a blank, as like, yeah, it was nice to meet you too, that's like end of statement. So it's always, it was nice to meet you too. So have you read the book? What do you think? Or is there anything that interests you? Or are you free on Saturday to come and visit the manor? Or something like that. But usually it's very casual, and then over time you can sort of figure out what the person's interested in, and then you go from there. I think Prayojan Prabhu had a comment first. I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but
in reference to what they're saying about meeting people who arouse a question in people.
yeah.
For me, it was a question that raised in my curiosity. He said, "What's this human form of life meant for?"
Yeah.
With that, it was a lecture that I went to on the Isle of Wight, and he was also there. He's a Prabhupada disciple. He goes to vegetarian societies and all sorts of people he meets. And what he was doing, just that little question aroused my mind. And, astrology he was doing, and all these people were coming. But when I sort of said there, I was interested, not really in astrology, but that question that says, what's this human form of life? And so he gave me, he says, well, yeah, just come and see and look at your astrological chart. So I did. And it was really close, actually. But then part of that deal, you know, because I had to pay him something, he gave me Bhagavad Gita as it is. That was my first book. And it just took off from there when I started to read what Prabhupada was telling us. It was amazing that he told us what the human form of life was meant for. It was almost like in at the deep end. It was at the, you could say, I was middle-aged when I met this person.
Yeah.
And that was it. Bhagavad Gita as it is. Ki?
Jai. I just want to say, Prayojan Prabhu used to stay on the Isle of Wight.
Yeah.
And he used to do books there. He used to have a book table, do a group in the library and stuff like that. It was interesting because Prayojan Prabhu moved here in like the 90s, late 90s or something like that.
Yeah,
And I was speaking to my wife, Kishori, who also grew up on the Isle of Wight. And 20 years later, we found out in a conversation with Prayojan Prabhu that they both used to live on the same street. I thought the odds of that were like, just because of, they never met because Kishori was probably very young at the time. But they used to live, out of the two devotees we have from the Isle of Wight, they used to live on the same street. And I tend to think that Prayojan Prabhu's presence had just purified the street.
Oh, yes, yes.
And soon I think there'll be more devotees coming from that street. Thank you. I think we should stop here. We can speak later. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki